Hello, and welcome to Health Talk, a new show where we will discuss topics informed by you, the listener. We'll cover health challenges you're facing and provide you with the information to live your best, healthiest life. I'm your host, Dr. Desmar Walkes, family physician and health authority for Austin Travis County. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the challenges and rewards of family caregiving with two special guests, including a family caregiver and an expert on aging and elder care. More than 40 million Americans provide informal support to someone aged 50 or older, and many of us experience the financial and psychological strain that entails. We're all familiar with the image of a parent caring for a child or an adult caring for a parent. But what often goes overlooked is how caregivers handle the emotional and financial weight of this experience. While everyone has a unique story, there are recurring themes that are all too common: financial hardship and mental and physical health challenges of their own. Our first guest, KC Lawrence, is a social worker and program officer with AGE of Central Texas. AGE is an organization that supports older adults and their caregivers as they age. Welcome, Casey.
Thanks so much for having me.
Can you explain the concept of family caregiving and how it fits into the broader context of elder care?
I'd be happy to. So a family caregiver is someone who is providing unpaid regular care for a family member or friend or loved one.
Mm-hmm.
And caregiving can include help with activities that happen every day, like bathing and dressing or paying bills, and it can include emotional support as well. And it's for anyone who's dealing with challenges related to aging or dealing with a chronic health condition or disability.
So tell us what you're seeing and hearing from caregivers in Central Texas. What are some of the challenges they're facing?
Caregiving is complex and every person's experience is different, of course, but there are definitely some themes that we're noticing among caregivers. Definitely challenges with mental health, such as depression, anxiety, and stress. Challenges with physical health, like sleep problems, risk of injury, or even having worse health compared to somebody of the same age who's not caregiving.
Yeah.
Strains on work relationships and finances. Difficulties with care decisions. It's really hard to know when is it time to move to the next step in caregiving or ask for extra help or things like that. Family challenges, so that could be conflict with our family members about care, but it could also be resistance from the care recipient to receiving the help and care that they need. It can also be hard to advocate for care with the healthcare system or with healthcare providers.
So, Casey, with all of those things that you just mentioned, what are some of the ways that caregivers deal with isolation, anger, and anxiety, and some of those other things that come with the territory for them emotionally?
It's a great question, and I think it's so important for caregivers to get emotional support on their journey from the very beginning. And we at AGE are here to help, of course. We have caregiver support groups, which I think are really, really helpful. And Tania, your guest in a little bit, might talk about the caregiver support group that she attends at AGE. But also we have an information and resource center that people can call when they have any questions related to caregiving. And I think the real benefit there is a caregiver can call and say, I'm frustrated, I'm anxious, I'm overwhelmed, I'm stressed out, and I just don't know where to start. And we can help them figure out where to start, where it might make sense to put their effort at this point in their caregiving journey.
So what are some of your favorite resources that you would recommend to a caregiver? And particularly, you gave a really long list of things that they may have to be juggling for the person that they're caring for. So how do you start to prioritize the resources that you'd offer?
I think it's really important to get help early on in your caregiving journey, and I think a really great way to do that is through respite care, which gives family caregivers a break from their caregiving duties, especially when the person they're caring for might not be safe to be left alone anymore. And that really can help create the space for the caregiver to make time for self-care, for a caregiver support group, for mental health care, such as counseling, for time to go to the doctor for a checkup and maybe get screened for depression and anxiety and get treatment for that. I think that the respite care is so important. We have 2 adult day health centers, our Thrive Social and Wellness Centers, that provide excellent respite for caregivers, and we're open Monday through Friday, 7 to 5:30. So it's great for working caregivers as well. You can go to work and then maybe also get some extra time for the self-care that is needed to keep you going in the caregiving journey.
So when you talk about this respite care that you offer, is that for people with all levels of cognitive functioning, or is it specifically for people that are fully functional cognitively?
Yes, we have many members who are living with symptoms of dementia. So it's a small group program, so anyone who can function in a group is welcome to come and talk to us for an assessment and go through our intake process. We also can provide assistance in the restroom as long as the person is a one-person assist, and we have a nurse on staff. So we really serve a really wide variety of individuals, from people who just want more social interaction during the day to people who may need assistance, every time they go to the restroom.
That sounds wonderful. What are the roles that you see or how do the roles of the family member who's caring for somebody change as the person that they're caring for has progression of their illness?
It's such a big challenge because we start in the role of daughter, sister, wife, whatever that role in the family may be, and our role really morphs more and more into that caregiver role. And as the person's disease progresses, let's say dementia, as the symptoms progress, the person will become less and less independent, and the caregiver will have to take on more and more, especially in terms of helping modify their environment or provide assistance with their activities of daily living in order to make sure that they are getting all the care that they need. It can become very, very challenging.
And so is your agency or identified partner group organizations, are they able to help those who are caregiving navigate some of those challenges? Particularly, I'm thinking it's got to be tough psychologically to shift from being, say, a daughter to a caregiver, right?
Right. Yes, absolutely. I think that's where our caregiver support groups come in, because it gives caregivers an opportunity to talk with other people really frankly about what they're going through and have them truly understand. And we have some caregiver support groups that are for specific populations. So for example, caregivers of people with dementia, and then we have one for adult children caring for a parent as well, so that they can really unite over some of those common challenges.
What are some of the strategies for managing the financial aspects of family caregiving, such as balancing work and caregiving responsibilities, navigating insurance and benefits, all of the tricky things?
It's a huge challenge for sure.
Yeah.
I think if the person is a working caregiver, it's so important to talk with your employer, because a lot of employers have support for caregivers, whether that's resources they can refer to, like age, or flexible hours that can help them attend to their caregiving duties. I think that's really important. I think that it's important to have conversations with the care recipient really early on about their finances. Do they have the funds to afford care? What kind of care are they hoping to have as they age and as they need more and more care? Does the caregiver have access to the bank account or the credit cards or the online banking, whatever it might be, to really help and support that person with their finances? It can also be helpful to visit with an attorney who specializes in elder law, and H has 5 caregiver conferences throughout the year, and we often have experts at those conferences and seminars where people can ask questions and they can cover a lot of the common questions that come up for caregivers.
How can family caregivers effectively communicate and coordinate with healthcare professionals and other members of the care team?
Yes, so I think it's a really big challenge for, especially for caregivers, when what the caregiver is seeing at home may differ really drastically from what the older adult is experiencing at home. And so they're really telling two completely different stories in that doctor's appointment. And that can be really stressful for everyone involved. No one likes to be told, you're wrong, that's not what's happening. And so I've heard caregivers share a really great tip of either sending a message on the online portal ahead of the appointment or even handing a letter to the receptionist when they get there to communicate with the medical provider and let them know, these are the issues I'm seeing at home, these are the things I want to address in the appointment, without having to say in front of the care recipient, you're wrong, you really do need help with that, when they don't want help with that specific thing.
I want to get back to caregiver burnout, because I think that's something that I know I've seen in my practice, and you've seen as you help people that are caregivers. Can you speak to the signs and symptoms of burnout in caregivers?
Yes, you're right. Caregiver burnout can affect up to 60% of caregivers. It's very, very common. And I think it's important to notice the signs of caregiver burnout, and also to, again, get help really early on in your caregiving journey to try and prevent burnout from setting in. So signs and symptoms of burnout can include emotional and physical exhaustion, withdrawal from friends and activities that they previously enjoyed, feeling hopeless or helpless, changes in appetite or weight, changes in sleep patterns, getting sick more often, and irritability, frustration, or anger towards others. And as I kind of go through those symptoms, those all seem like normal things a caregiver might go through in a day of caregiving when it gets really frustrating. But this is something that would really be prolonged and significantly impacting their ability to care for themselves and others.
And so you recommend that they reach out to a healthcare provider, or they could call AGE of Central Texas.
Yes.
Or they could even call 988, which is the crisis hotline, if they're really feeling up against a wall, right?
Absolutely. Any of those would be great actions to take. At AGE, we have this information and resource center where people can call and ask any question that's on their mind. And I think that that's just a really great resource that caregivers need to know about, because a lot of times I think caregivers don't know who to call, don't know who to ask a question, maybe go to the doctor's appointment and ask a question, and the doctors may indicate that that's not something they can help with. So I hope that they reach out to AGE for help with one of our many programs. We provide a lot of excellent services to the community. Yeah,
and I also add that, take care to make sure you eat, make sure you get your sleep, make sure you take time to breathe and meditate and get some exercise and have some fun, because you've got to rejuvenate yourself. You've got to do that self-care in order to be able to take care of somebody else.
Absolutely. It's so important. And I think, it doesn't have to be, those don't have to be big things, right? It could be, a 3-minute meditation listening to nature sounds. It can be something really small that you just work into the routine of your day. But I think even bite-sized pieces of those things can really help caregivers through their journey.
I really want to thank you for this great information, Casey, and I hope that our listeners will reach out to AGE of Central Texas. They have a lot of resources available for caregivers of loved ones, and thank you.
Thank you so much. We at AGE really believe caregivers shouldn't age alone, and I hope people reach out to us for help. Thank you.
Thank you. If you're just joining us, this is Health Talk. We're going to hear from Tania Hammond, a caregiver in our community, who has agreed to tell us a little bit about her experiences and lessons learned in this labor of love. Welcome, Tania.
Thank you.
Could you tell us about yourself and tell us something about how long you've been caring for your loved one, and what are your primary responsibilities?
Sure. I am a wife, a mom, a sister, a daughter, a grandma. So I've got a bunch of hats. The daughter hat is the one that's changing the most these days. My dad's been living with us since about 2018. He called me crying one day and said he needed to move in with us because he was being made to retire. And we were kind of frustrated and didn't understand what was going on until he lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico at the time. When I got out there and realized how bad things were, it made a lot more sense. Being distant made it harder to understand the changes that were happening cognitively. So the things I help him with, I'm fully in charge of his finances. I'm in charge of medicating him. I give him, the only meal he does himself is breakfast every morning. He'll come in and make himself a bowl of cereal. Other than that, I give him all of his meals. If I don't put food in front of him, he won't eat. He doesn't seem to really be able to even decide what he wants to eat. If I give him a decision, it freezes him up. So I just kind of have to choose for him. Either that or he'll just say peanut butter and jelly. He just always says peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah. So what motivated you to become a caregiver? We talked a little bit before, and I just want you to tell people what's in your heart about that.
Sure. I feel like it's a blessing to be able to be a caregiver of the people that we love in our lives. It's not easy. It is a burden, but it's a burden of love, which is a positive burden, I feel like. If people hear the word burden, the first thing they think is it's bad, it's negative. I'm a burden on you, and there's a negative connotation, but in my opinion, it's a positive burden. It's not an easy one. But it is positive. It's good for, I'm thrilled that I was able to care for my mom, and now I'm able to care for my dad, that I've been placed in a situation with a great husband that's the most amazing support, and my sisters who are also great support. If I need them, they're there. No questions asked. And even if it's just to cry on their shoulder. So yeah, it's good. It's good. And the decision was easy, because I always knew my dad was going to live with us at some point. Yeah. We had made that decision long ago. So, yeah, it's good.
What do you wish you'd known before you started on this journey?
I wish I'd known about age a lot sooner, to be honest. I think I've only been in the meetings for the last, 4 months, maybe? It hasn't been very long. And there's a lot of fear, a lot of... what's the right thing to do for him? It's like raising a child backwards. So, when you have your child and they're first born, you're like, what do I do with this tiny thing? I know nothing. And then as they grow, each phase, you've learned from the last phase, and you have to learn more from this new phase. And it's like doing that backwards. It's doing that in reverse. And so I kind of wish that I'd had a better understanding of that. And then the caregiver situation, doctor situation, finding the right doctors for my dad that are going to be able to meet his specific needs, but also be willing to communicate with me and hear what I have to say. Because one of the biggest issues we've had is with neurologists paying more attention to his testing than the words coming out of my mouth. I actually had a neurologist tell me, I don't know why that's like that at home, because that's not what the test shows. And so it's very hard to get support from a physician when they won't listen to you and not look at what their test showed, but hear what's going on in my day-to-day life.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Tell me a little bit more about what's going on emotionally and logistically as you're kind of trying to cope with all of those things.
Logistically, there's a lot of appointment scheduling, making sure that I get dad's appointments scheduled. I've got my own doctor's appointments that I've got to work around because I've got my own health challenges. So making him appointments, making me appointments, canceling my appointments if I need to for him. I was telling Casey when I first got here, we were at the emergency room with my dad the other night. So now we've got several appointments over the next couple weeks that weren't there before, because now we have to get this issue taken care of that's more of a health issue, which we haven't dealt with before. So then, of course, that's fear. That's anxiety. Like, what's this next phase going to look like? Am I now going to be having to help him bathe and use the restroom and get in and out of a wheelchair? Or is this just a speed bump and we're going to be okay? I mean, I guess everything could be considered a speed bump, but sometimes it's one of those really big ones that you got to go super slow, and sometimes it's just one of those little quick ones that you just get over the hump and you move on. Yeah. So I guess it's just figuring out which kind this one is.
So, you talk about speed bumps. I get it. It's a great visual. And I'm wondering, what supports do you have in place for those kinds of things?
My sisters. Okay. My younger sister lives in Killeen, so she's only about 45 minutes away. So this week we have to meet with a surgeon, and she's going to come for that appointment. My older sister lives in Coleman, so she's a little farther out, but she is going to come at the end of the month just to spend a few days. So if I want to go out on a date with my husband, or if I want to, sit in my bedroom and sew for a couple hours instead of having to pay attention to where Dad is and what he's doing. I'm an overprotective mother, and so a lot of the issues I have are self-induced. I've texted my husband like 4 times since I've been here, make sure you do Dad's blood pressure, make sure you make him dinner, make sure, as if he doesn't know how to do what we do every single day in the household that we both live in, But my husband, I could not ask for a better support. He will tell me, you need to go to bed, I'll take care of it. He'll tell me, go sit down and relax, I'll take care of Dad's meds tonight, or, he's better at diffusing situations when my dad's emotions start getting spun up. He's better at being able to talk to Dad in a way that it calms him down. Excuse me. And so that's probably the biggest thing I need right now, is that assistance with, because my dad and I, our personalities can clash sometimes.
I know you've mentioned to me that you're a stay-at-home mom and you just love it. But I just wonder, how has it affected your relationships with friends and your husband? And
sorry. Friends are kind of, what's the word, ancillary? Is that the big word that you can use? Like, it's just not a priority. I want it to be, but if I'm going to go out with a friend, it has to be just a friend, and my husband has to stay with my dad, or we have to get a caretaker for my dad so my husband and I can both go out. So, we're at a point in life where empty nesters, except now my dad's with us. So, I visualized this point in my life being, my friend calls up and says, hey, let's go to dinner. And we go, okay, cool, let's go to dinner, and we're just not there now. And that's okay. It's just where we're at. So I don't really get a lot of that. We do have some really good friends that are really understanding with that. And, hey, we're going out. Can you join us? Not tonight. Okay, cool. We'll set something up for next week or whatever. But I'm really bad at the self-care. I'll say that outright. And I think it comes with the overprotectiveness,
and the momness.
Yeah. It's hard for me when I think about my dad is still awake. And there's little things like, I can't sleep past 5 o'clock in the morning, which I don't anyway. But my dad gets up and he has to take his meds before he can eat his breakfast, and I have to make sure he has his meds. I can't give them to him early because he's been taking them inappropriately. So I used to just put him in his bedroom at night, and I can't do that anymore. So I have to be up, because if I'm not up, he won't look for it. If he doesn't see me, he won't look for his meds, even if they're in the same spot that they're in every single morning. So I can't sleep in. I have to make sure I'm up before he is. I don't usually go to bed until he goes to bed at night. He will get up when I'm up, and he will go to bed when I go to bed. It's uncanny sometimes. There's been times 3 o'clock in the morning I come out of my bedroom and he comes out. It's like he's got a sixth sense about me being up. So that can get exhausting, having 5 minutes by myself. But he says that it's comforting to him to be in the same room with me. So if I can be comfort to him, I can deal with not having 5 minutes of by myself time.
So how do you handle stress? Do you take time to walk or exercise or anything like that?
I cry.
Oh.
I mean, sometimes that's all. The biggest thing for me, honestly, has been the support group with age. I know every Friday for an hour and a half, I'm going to be able to sit there and I'm going to be able to share what I've been dealing with, or I'm going to be able to hear what other people have been dealing with that is a mirror of myself. And there's times that I haven't even brought something up and somebody else talks about something. I'm like, oh my gosh, now I get it, Nicole, who's I don't know what they're called, she leads the group, generally. Casey's done it a couple of times. But she has a really good explanation of thinking about just making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich that we don't think about. And I've never heard that explanation before, but I saw it in practice with my dad, with him trying to make himself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And to me, it would have been like, go get bread, get jelly, what's the deal? I don't understand. So having that already in my little suitcase of tools that I need to take care of my dad properly, it's immeasurably important to me.
In your opinion, what are some of the most important things you could tell somebody who hasn't been on your journey about how to prepare for being a caregiver of someone they love?
I mean, again, I kind of compare it a lot to having a child. It's really hard to tell somebody what their journey is going to be like because it isn't going to be like mine, you know? So I guess throw your expectations out the window, you know, find people in your life, in your circle that are going to be supportive, and don't be afraid to not push people away, but kind of put them on the back burner if they're not helping, if they're questioning you, if they're challenging you, if they're trying to go around you to talk to the person you're trying to take care of. Just make sure it's very clear to them if this continues, you're not going to be able to be a part of this situation because it's too stressful on him. And don't be afraid to reach out. This is something I'm really bad about, but don't be afraid to reach out when you need help, when you need something. You know, KC was talking about the respite care, and we haven't been able to use any of that. And so look into that early and look into that often, because it is necessary. It is important for your relationships besides the person you're taking care of, you know, to be able to hold on to those relationships. And, you know, my poor husband had to be second fiddle to my kids, and now he's second fiddle to my dad. And he's amazing and doesn't ever complain, but I know it's hard for him. I know it's very hard on him, but he loves my dad and he loves me. So just make sure you've got people in your pocket that are there for you and love you and care about you. What
kind of support or changes would you like to see in our community to help make your life and the lives of other family caregivers easier?
You know, I thought about this question for quite a while because it's a really hard one to answer.
Yeah.
Because the first thing that comes into my mind is money. It's expensive. Not just the day-to-day, because that's just living expenses, but as we go forward in this journey, he's going to need professional care, like whether it's in an assisted living or in a memory care facility. At some point, chances are high he's going to have to go to one of those kind of facilities, and he can't afford it. And we can't afford to help him. So, you know, the cost of living makes everything go up, which makes that more expensive, which just makes everything a lot harder. And that's no one's fault. I mean, you know, people have to get paid for their job they're doing, and you've got to be able to pay for the place where the people are living. Like, it makes perfect sense, but that's the only thing that came into my mind is just everything is so expensive. And how does somebody that's living on Social Security afford that care when it comes to that point in their lives, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, I know Medicaid, and, you know, I haven't looked into all of that, but that's the only thing that came into my head when I was thinking about that question.
Yeah, that's the tough one, right?
It is.
Anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I'm really thankful to be on this journey. I'm thankful to be here and to be able to talk about this subject. And I'm thankful to have my dad still in my life, and in whatever way that looks at the moment, I'm thankful. And I guess just always remember to be grateful, even if you're just grateful for the tiny small things, you know?
Yeah.
Playing with my granddaughters for a couple hours this morning was really, really helpful to me in my day, and being here this afternoon has been really good.
Thank you. That's all the time we have for today's episode of Health Talk. A big thank you to our guests, KC Lawrence and Tania Hammond, for sharing their expertise and experience with us. Remember, if you are a family caregiver, you're not alone. Reach out to organizations like Age of Central Texas for more resources and support. Join us in 2 weeks for our next episode, all about dementia prevention and care, a topic that's hugely important to so many of us. Beyond that, we want to hear from you. What topics do you want to hear about? There's a survey on KAZI's website and on KAZI's Facebook page where you can tell us what resonates with you, so please do share your feedback with us. Thanks again to KAZI 88.7 and St. David's Foundation for their support of this program. Until next time, take care of yourself and each other. This is Dr. Desmar Walkes signing off. Be well.